I had a habit for a period of time of doing these short summaries on Saturdays. And I had some help. People showed up. It felt more casual. And it assisted in creating an ability for me to see things in weekly chunks and summarized in sections that was very useful. And in synergy with this month's lecture, which is Patrick Lecture 47, The Wall Within, I am branching out and trying some different things. And so for week one, partly because I've just been immersed in the lecture, I feel very full of the ideas about the lecture, and I'm raring to go on earlier in the week. So I'm just going to record it earlier in the week. In the previous video, I talked about how intuitively I just felt that the lecture I'd planned wasn't right, and I found this and it felt right. That's an intuitive process. Discovering the wall within is also an intuitive process. So I'm going to describe it in larger, a larger energetic sense. But the truth is, the wall within is really deep and really solid and hard to access. So it's useful to use metaphors along the way to get there, but ultimately you're going to wind up with a knowing. And the knowing is not going to feel good because the wall within is a place where we have said no. And everything else is just an excuse or justification, but ultimately we're dealing with a no. No, thank you. No, not yet. Make it as fancy as you want. There's a no in there. Part of what I learned in pathwork is to respect finding the no in the first place, and not to push too hard. So sometimes no is as far as I'm going to get. And I have to breathe and stand back and realize that there will be no further progress immediately. But there was progress in finding the no. So I'm going to suggest to you that if you find this wall during the time you study this lecture, take that as a really, really important step. Don't minimize the finding of the wall. And then there's other processes about disassembling it and deconstructing it. But let's celebrate finding it in the first place. So what is the wall? It is constructed to hide, to stop, to prevent, to mask, to eradicate, to keep from ever becoming conscious. Anything that the conscious self, the ego mind, including the slightly preconscious or unconscious aspects of the conscious ego mind, whatever we fear, whatever we're not ready to face, whatever we are prejudiced against. And so we may be prejudiced, and then there's the fear that we're attracted to it, so we wall it off. Now we won't be tempted. But there's also what we wall off that is what we know is the result of our own negativity. So there's a knowing that that wall is keeping us from progress. That wall is holding back the knowledge that we need to transform and purify. And we don't care. We don't want to see it. So the conscious ego mind, the part of you that thinks and feels, built it, controls it, and is perfectly capable of disguising it and denying it. So you have absolute control over the wall. You built it. It's yours. So why would it ever come up? Because your conscious ego mind is not all you are. You are also your divine inner yes. And the divine inner yes is never going to be satisfied with no. And the conscious ego mind has access to that. And Pathwork is about gaining more and more access. So the more access we get, the more we become aware of our large number of nodes, our significant number of walls. So you could almost see this as a series or a Russian doll, one within the other. It's not just one. So here's how I suggest that you get used to the idea. When I and others teach about defenses, we teach about feeling it in your body, feeling your defensive systems in your body. So let's start with that gross example. Notice when you are sitting, being, working, playing with someone that accepts you, they approve of you, they love you. They're not after you, they're not trying to change you. They're perfectly happy with who you are in the moment. And just notice your energetic state. I call it taking a snapshot, energetic snapshot. This is how I feel. This is how my body feels. This is how my psyche feels. These are the images I have within when I'm in this presence with another person. And then notice how your energetic system feels when it's around people who don't approve of you, have a chip on their shoulder, have something to prove, do not like who you are, wish to change you, have an agenda that they wish to confront you with, are challenged by you, which means they're going to fight back, or who challenge you, which means you are in defense, ready to fight back. Just notice the difference. And my invitation is to go deeper than the defense or the invitation, to feel the numerous ways that you stop and divert energy within you in these two situations. Now, why that exercise? Because by seeing the grosser examples, you may be able to, what do you call that? There's a word for taking the big example to the small example. There's a word, I can't think of it right now. You may be able to carry that feeling down to a very, very small, microscopic, sensitive, subtle level, and then sense into what this lecture is talking about. The wall within you that you've built to shut down something so much that you can no longer hear it, and you may not even know it exists, but we can become aware of it. We can become sensitive to, we can become aware of things. Here's another example. Think in terms of your hearing, where you, in a noisy situation, you don't hear a lot of subtlety. But when it's really, really quiet, the dead of night or early in the morning, you can hear the rustling of people moving, or the sounds of animals, or the wind moving. You can't hear that when it's noisy. To do some of this work, you're going to have to find ways of gaining that quiet space where your mind is not filled and busy. Remember that as long as the mind is filled and busy, it's very happy to run away from this thing that it doesn't want to see in the first place. And so that's what one of the values of meditation is: shut up, sit down, and listen. And what happens to a lot of people is they become flooded, and it's scary. Well, it's like a lot of homework. You've been stuffing a lot of things down, and it's now all ready to, everybody's raising their hand and saying, me, listen to me, listen to me. So it's kind of raucous when you first open that toy chest. You may have to go through some layers first. And at some point, you'll feel something solid. Something's not funny or cute or even interesting. It's got this sense of dread, of doom to it. And that's a wall that this lecture is inviting you to explore. It's hard work, not meant to be done in a crowded room, not meant to be done at your professional work environment or in the middle of a board meeting or in a friendly conversation. It's very private work. So you're going to have to make time for this. You're going to have to find that quiet time where you can listen to these energetic flutterings and get a sense for what this lecture is talking about. So, short summary, week 1 of Patrick Lecture 47, The Wall Within, and this part was about how we are building the wall to hide our negativity. If we built it, we can unbuild it. So, thanks for listening.